So music is, as we've been talking about, this huge connection. It's symbiotic. You're used to playing for live audiences. You've certainly done your time in studios. You've got 15 albums now, not
15.
including your greatest hits. There's also that. Um, I'm from the same background, playing for live audiences. COVID hits. It's all gone. How have you been dealing with that as a musician when suddenly the only connection you've had in the room, you and I have been doing some live streams and we've been
Yeah.
doing videos,
Yeah.
and suddenly I'm your only audience standing there behind the camera working on stuff, distracting you.
Well, we started out with realizing that this was a real thing, and did about 3 months of streaming weekly, weekly concerts.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as a musician that's all I've done for my career is play concerts and play gigs and shows and working musician. You know, anywhere from a concert to a club or a wedding, all kinds of things. You know.
Yeah, Benaroya.
Yeah,
Really
travels
big
and
places.
tours, and so 40 years of playing at least 3 nights a week.
Yeah.
Consistently all these years. So it has been traumatic to suddenly not have the lifestyle of going out. I mean, I would have, for example, in the past, if I wasn't feeling well, I would still go out and play my gig, and music has this healing power. I would
For
play for people and play my gig, and I would actually feel better. You know. And so it feeds me. It feeds my soul. Just giving the gift of music is what I'm all about. You know, so to not be able to do it for a year or more has been difficult for sure. You know, the playing online and playing for people in a streaming capacity is also different. You know, it's hard to feel that connection with the audience when you're looking at a camera. You know,
Right.
especially if you're doing it from your own home. There's something about it. It feels kind of dry. It can, you know. I personally, I haven't ever really gotten used to it. I'm sure
Yeah.
some people have. You know, but.
Yeah.
But fortunately now we're starting to come back slowly. I'm
Yes.
getting some calls for shows, but I have a feeling it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while
Yeah.
for theaters and venues to feel comfortable having enough people to make it worth putting on the show. I mean, it was already an industry that, unless you're dealing with the very well-known pop artists, you know,
Right.
in general, the industry isn't. It's not an easy sell. You know, you have to sell enough tickets to pay everybody, and so a lot of venues that I've had concerts set up with for last year, they don't want to reschedule until they can be at almost 100%. It doesn't.
Right.
It's not feasible to say, okay, let's do the concert at 50%. You know.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's,
because even at that, they still have to have the 6 foot spacing distance between everybody. So even if they could get that many people in there, they can't necessarily even hit 50%. I've
Yeah.
talked to some restaurant owners who are in
Yeah.
that same predicament. You know, I
Right.
was like, well, we go up to 50%, and I was told, well, that's nice, but we're not a big enough building. We're still going to be at 25% capacity.
It depends on the state too. You know, like
Right.
here in Washington State, if you're going to sing, you have to have a plexiglass
Right.
a barrier of some sort.
Yep, we're 20 feet
20
different
feet, yeah,
distance.
yeah. So now for me, on the positive side, I'm not a band. I'm just a solo artist.
Right.
So there are places I can play. Don't have to make quite as much money. But yeah, it's going to be some rebuilding. A lot of venues have closed.
Right.
Like some of the places that I've played, I'm reaching out to the program director. They're not there anymore. You know, so it's definitely going to take some time to get back to where we were.
For sure.
But but that brings me to where we are right now with One Moon Studio,
Yeah.
and this is in the middle of the pandemic. I've always thought I needed to have something going on online,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that is something interesting, and that also, um, allows me to. I've had fun over the last few years, kind of putting on the promoter hat and
Right.
working with other artists.
Right.
So
Which is a part we hadn't even talked about yet.
yeah,
What is it
so
you've been called? The Ed Sullivan of Seattle. One of your friends called you that.
oh yeah,
Anyway.
our dear friend Overton Berry used to call me
Right.
that. We said I did Benaroya Hall Valentine's Day for 20 years, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it turned into every year where I'd bring on a lot of artists,
Right.
So now,
Including me one year. Thank you.
of course,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
yeah.
was wonderful.
Um, so so now. The idea with One Moon is it's international, so we can have this platform of interviews and concerts with local people, but also streaming with Zoom or StreamYard with do interviews with some, oud player from Turkey, and then
Right.
they send us their material for a concert, and
Mm-hmm.
so yeah. So this is I feel good about the direction we're going with One Moon. I think it's going to be a nice offering, and it's almost like a small venue, like a
It
little
is.
concert venue.
Right.
But I want to, like we've talked about, expand into visual arts and literature and have a little bit of everything. Yeah,
Right, which
yeah,
is great. As in my I was an art major at university, and one thing that I learned is that none of the arts exist in a vacuum. You like visual art, and you write poetry, and the artists, the painters like me, I'm sitting there listening to music while I paint.
hmm
And authors, I'm also a writer, and so when I write, I'm listening to music. And historically, all of these artists have known each other. They're gathering at coffee shops through history. They're
yeah,
sitting
yeah,
down, or they're drinking absinthe
yeah.
in history, and growing off of each other. And that's kind of where you brought all this in. That was your idea to bring in. Let's have visual artists. Let's have poets. And you're both. You're a photographer. You're a writer. You're a painter. You're wow, you're a Renaissance man.
Well, I always thought it'd be interesting to have a group of artists where we um, put together, just for the fun of it,
Hmm.
a little bit of a, what do you want to call it, a graph that would, in a very subjective way, because it's everybody's got their opinion of how um, the different elements of the art forms correspond. So, like, what color is D minor and what emotion does it represent?
Mm,
And
interesting.
what other poetic words would you, how else would you describe it in like a couple of words?
Right.
So taking, several art forms and putting together a graph of like, okay, these particular elements all align at this point,
Right. Oh, that's interesting. I like it.
you know, and it could be, it'd be a little bit subjective, of course,
Well,
because
sure.
everybody feels
But
something.
art always is.
Yeah, yeah. What's the word for people that see music and there's a transference of,
Oh, I know what you're talking about. But yeah, they see music as
yeah,
colors.
it's a word that derives from feeling, from sentiment, but I think. But anyway, I can't
What
remember the
most
word.
people don't know is at this point in our conversation, normally I'd be pulling out my phone and looking this up because we go through this often. It's like, what is that word? Or you would be. We won't. We'll spare everybody that one today. But so One Moon, I heard this great term recently, COVID baby, and it was referring to businesses and ideas and things that came out of the COVID pandemic that maybe wouldn't have quite gotten going otherwise. And One Moon, a little bit, is like that, but not completely. Even before that, the industry was changing a lot.
Yeah.
And that's
yeah.
been a struggle.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I mean, well, how many countries, you've toured on how many continents? You've been through parts of Europe?
Yeah. I've actually only played in Europe and North and South America.
Okay.
I plan in the next 10, 20 years to get to other parts of the world.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. So help us get this guy out there. The world needs to hear him. But in that time, you've experienced different cultures and different things, and so touring can be where the money is. But you know, it used to be CD sales.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
merch
I
is
see
still
what, yeah. Well,
kind of
yeah,
there, but
I mean,
it's changed so
the
much.
industry. Yeah, I've
Especially
had
the
a
last 10 or 15 years,
yeah,
just 10.
Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations with musicians the last few years. It is changing. I mean, I mean, it depends on what kind of music you're playing and what your story
Right.
is. But in general, the industry is it's a little harder to make a living as an artist than it was 10 years ago, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because with streaming services, they don't pay much.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's one thing that has kind of gone away. Making decent money off of being compensated enough for your recordings and your intellectual property. That has really declined a lot. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Streaming services basically, people just get it for almost free.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, and in some cases, you do get it for free.
Yeah.
And what I think most people don't realize, that as the business side of this and the media side, I've had to do the research. And I mean, some of these, you have to have around 1,000 views to make $1. I mean, it's these extraordinary number of views that are out there. And I think if somebody who's not part of the music business, they look at this and all the streaming, it's like, wow, Andre's on Spotify, Andre's here and there. You must be a millionaire by now. Well, it doesn't work that way, does it? You're a working artist.
Oh yeah, but I think there's been a lot of talk about that. There have been so many, pop artists and popular artists that have they've complained about where the industry is going, and they've tried to get all their content offline, which is impossible to do.
It is.
I think the general audience is aware that this is happening. I mean, it's happening like in the film business too. I mean, not all, but many of the small boutique theaters that I always used to like to go to. Like we have one here and Langley, the Clyde, places
Right.
like that. In Seattle, many of those have closed, and I'm sure that's happening around the country too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've known some theater owners, and all the money is on concessions.
Yeah.
They really don't make much of anything on ticket sales. It's all the food that
Yeah,
shows. So
yeah.
when you go to the movie, buy food.
Yeah.
and
Well,
buy
yeah,
merch.
but I think that what's
It's
happening
tough.
is so many people are just staying home and consuming things on their devices. It's just the trend,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's getting
yeah.
to be more and more so.
Yeah.
Which, back to One Moon then. That's
Yeah.
kind of where
Yeah.
we're going. If you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah. So I have always had this fascination with the moon. A lot of my the creative phase that I went through when I first started to compose and write was very much influenced by the moon. I was living
Right.
and
Some
down-
of your album names even.
Yeah, yeah. I was living downtown Seattle, and top floor of this old building, and I had a view of the Sound, and so a lot of my art and early art was inspired by the moon, and then the thought, okay, Julius Caesar looked at that same moon.
Right.
Jesus looked at that same moon,
Right. Yeah.
or just the idea that
It's been there through all of human history.
yeah, so across the world, every person, we all look at the same moon. It's a romantic thought,
It is.
So that's the title of
And
it.
that was the impetus
Yeah,
for
yeah.
One Moon. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember you coming up with that. And I had this kind of chill down my spine moment when you're like, well, everybody looks at the same moon. I'm like, oh, wow, that's deep. That's beautiful. Well, yeah, so there we are in that. And a part of that, too, we briefly touched on you putting people together. Not just for your shows at Benaroya and Triple Door. You've certainly been doing those for years, but you started your own festival.
Yeah, about 6 years ago, I started putting together guitar festivals in the Northwest. First one was called Guitar Euphoria.
Mm-hmm.
I've done Seattle Guitar Night in Seattle a few times at the Triple Door and other places. And now here on the island here, Whidbey Island, the Whidbey Island Guitar Festival coming
Right.
up in July. And
Which we had to skip this past year, but it's back.
yeah, we'll be back actual live, which is good. So the philosophy again is not just classical guitar. It's a celebration of the guitar in general.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is to bring different people from different walks of life that might not come to the same concert. So a bluegrass guitar player, because it's a lineup of like short concerts. So you have the audiences hearing 3 or 4 concerts all in one setting. So you have a bluegrass fans coming, and then the next concert is Baroque guitar, early music, So
Right.
so
But
all
they're
those
still there in the
all
audience.
those people are mixing, or somebody who
Right.
plays blues, rock, kind of electric style, and then then the classical guitar is next. So it's, and also the ethnic aspect. I've had sitar players, sarod players, the oud. So all instruments are kind of related to the guitar.
Right.
So the idea of bringing people of all walks of life together under the same tent, so to speak, is kind of the philosophy,
Right.
with the guitar festival.
And that extended to One Moon as well.
Yeah.
And One Moon Studio, and
Mm-hmm.
it's had a personal impact on you. As I recall, you mentioned playing a ukulele once, and that was your gateway to other instruments, and then being exposed to even more instruments at your own festival. You've been expanding yourself.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess you're talking about the instruments.
Right.
I about 10 years ago, I was only playing the classical guitar, but then I started playing the ukulele. Yeah, and not knowing that because now I play so many instruments in related to the guitar.
You
But
have
when
one or two.
I
Yeah.
do, yeah. But I didn't know that I would slowly be being interested in the voices of stringed instruments and the voices of sounds from around the world, different cultures, different spirits of sound, so to speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's part of my life now. And back to what you were saying, yeah, as jokingly, I always say, the ukulele, is the gateway drug to other instruments. It was for me.
It was for you. It was for you.
Because it is a bit of an addiction, so
Yeah.
getting guitars.
So that all wraps up. You're going to be trying to get a new tour going. String Stories.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And people will get a chance to see some of those instruments. And, well, matter of fact, the concert that we're putting with this is a String Stories concert, right?
Right, it is, yeah. Yeah, so this concert that you will be able to hear following this interview is a String Stories concert. And I'm playing 17 different instruments.
Wow.
3 of them are classical guitar or flamenco guitar, and the other 14 are various instruments from around the world, the oud,
And
the
from
sitar.
history.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a little more than usual, but because it was from my home and I didn't have to travel very far, I thought I would just
Right.
pull out the instruments and play them. Generally, my concert is structured where I might have 10 instruments, and I will spend about 40% of the concert playing the classical flamenco guitar, 2 or 3 songs, and then pick up one of the different instruments and talk about it, give it a little bit of an introduction,
Yeah.
And then I like variety. So, I'll sing a song that's maybe a Leonard Cohen style song, so sing a song in Italian, some poetry with music.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a variety pack, so to speak.
A little eclectic and wonderful, yeah. Kind of a cross section of the world of music, really.
Yeah, so I
A little
like
bit.
I like offering, I like taking people on a bit of a journey, and
Mm-hmm.
contrast is good. Um, I feel like as much as I love what I did in the early days, hearing, 2 sets, 2 hours of one sound, the classical guitar, is beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. But um, I do enjoy now thinking of the different instruments as characters with different voices.
Mm-hmm.
So, the ukulele, of course, has almost the small-bodied instruments do have generally a high-pitched sound, which is more
Mm.
childlike,
Mm.
And
Yeah,
then
okay.
like the harp guitar has these big bass strings, so it's like a contrast to that. There's more
For
darkness,
sure.
a little darker element to having the bass notes.
Mm-hmm.
So that type of contrast, and then you also have the exotic sounds that maybe you haven't heard before, an instrument from China or an instrument from the Middle East that in
Right.
those places is very common.
Right,
But
right.
to the Western ear, maybe not everybody's heard it, so that's
Mm-hmm.
an interesting element. Introducing something that's an established sound,
Right.
you know, in certain
In other
places,
places,
but
right.
yet you're introducing it to somebody for the first time, and because we've all been around as something, they've heard something in the movies or something, it's still going to have a familiarness to it to somebody,
Absolutely.
you know, which yeah, which is I think a good thing,
For sure.
and so yeah, string stories. I do have a concert coming up with string stories at a winery at the Dancing Fish Winery, May 7th.
On Whidbey Island,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and then the Whidbey Island, and then the Guitar Festival will be at Whidbey Island Center for the Arts, July 23rd, 24th, and 25th, and just starting to get the lineup of
Mm-hmm.
great artists that will be coming.
And I've seen the tentative possibilities. It's going to be a cool show.
Oh, I think.
Some
Oh,
great people.
yeah, yeah,
Some great people on that list.
definitely.
So you haven't done much with yourself then during COVID. You've got a new album, a new book, starting One Moon Studio. You've just been just sitting around being lazy mostly. So new album, new book.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, the album is called If Only Love,
Mm-hmm.
and it's basically, is it 12, 13 songs, all on nylon stringed instruments, mainly classical flamenco guitar,
Mm-hmm.
harp guitar, but all the softer sound of the nylon. So there's a song on the ukulele, the baritone ukulele. There's a song on the ronroco, which is an instrument from Bolivia.
Mm-hmm.
But intentionally, I kept it very introspective. So it's kind of a mellow journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the concept or the idea, if only love, is a hopeful thought for a continued intention of kindness and love towards one another, our thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and the idea of a more peaceful place through listening to music.
Right, which kind of encompasses your whole life philosophy of, people coming together and that connection, and if only love, there'd be less war, there'd be less conflict,
Yeah, yeah.
a more peaceful world, like you said.
So,
And
and
then
then
your
the
poetry book.
poetry book. It's about 30 years of poetry, a lot of new poems.
Well, that took you a while to write.
Yeah, some new poems and some from my past and some
Mm-hmm.
from relatively recent years. The title, the title came from a poem. When you're writing, you end up traveling when you write. So I write pretty stream of consciousness. So that was just an image that came to me as I was writing this particular poem. And a lot of people ask me, "Okay, why Slender Gods?" Well, you'd have to read the poem.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think my philosophy is has to do a lot with how life is. Life is a bit of a mystery, and like abstract art, like this Gottlieb here. It's going to be something different to everybody. So it's not going to be boring. Every day you're going to look at it and you're going to see something different.
Always something different.
So that's the same idea with Slender Gods. It's evokes a little bit of curiosity. But if you read the poem, it does make sense in the line of where it builds to. So so a poetry book, and I do have a recording project that I want to finish called String Stories. So I record on all these instruments, what I haven't done yet. So that's my next project that needs to be completed. Yeah.
All right. Well, we've probably made this the longest interview in our series so far because we know each other well and we've got a lot to talk about. And you've got a lot going on, and we probably could do another entire interview, and maybe we will. Let's do another.
We could,
Let's sit down and
Yeah,
have something
yeah.
to drink and do this again.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
You
Yeah.
have your water. I'll pull out my iced tea, and we'll be going good. Well, there we go. Andre, thank you for taking some time out of your really busy day, and very excited to be getting One Moon Studio off the ground. Excited about all the projects you've had going on. I encourage you to go to andreferiante.com, which is where his music is available for purchase. Your new book is on Amazon.
It is, yeah.
And we've got a link. There's a link on the website.
Yeah.
And all kinds of fun things coming.
All right.
Life is looking up and looking beautiful, I think. Don't
It
you?
is, yeah. Yeah, we're moving towards the light.
I believe
more
that.
More light.
More light. I
Light
believe that.
at the end of the tunnel. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Well, thanks, Shawn. This has been great.
Thank you, Andre.
Yeah.
Make sure you look at the link at the end of the video. You'll find a link to Andre's concert video, probably some other video from the One Moon Studio collection, and make sure you subscribe. Check out our Facebook page, and you'll find a link to subscribe after the video as well. So thank you so much for joining us, and Andre, thank you.